Universe. Media. Network. 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 Network.
If you're listening to this, there's a good chance you work within the real estate investing industry. There's another good chance that you would like to increase the sales of your products or services. Well, you're in the right place. United States Real Estate Investor is a platform you need to place your brand directly in front of your target audience. With our focused, growing audience of real estate investing beginners, enthusiasts, and seasoned professionals, you can continually reach our captivated viewers and listeners with ease. To learn more or to get started today, just visit UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/advertising. That's UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/advertising. Get ready to increase your brand awareness and your bottom line. Attract clients with content.
All right, welcome to This Month in Real Estate Investing, where we separate the news from the noise. I'm your host, James Brown, and I show people how they can make safe, secure returns through our pre-vetted passive investments. Feel free to join our private investor club so you can get exclusive opportunity alerts that we can't advertise to the public most of the time. So to join, just go to legacywealthcollective.com. In this episode of This Month in Real Estate Investing, we'll be breaking down a variety of real estate investing news items, including Gavin Newsom vetoes bill helping undocumented immigrants buy homes. That's a hot topic. Warnings for rich Americans buying overseas investment properties, and Mogul sues real estate firm for hiding Jeff Bezos as a buyer. And don't forget, if you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, you can share your thoughts and questions during the show. We'll get them and then we can reply to them. All this and more on this episode of This Month in Real Estate Investing. Let's start the show. All right, our guests today are Igor Shaltanov, Frank Iglesias, and Eric Burns. In that order, Igor, Frank, and then Eric, why don't you share an intro about yourselves, like your background in real estate investing, what types of investing you're focusing on now?
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure and welcome guest. There's a couple of words I want to say. So number one, I started in residential real estate, and I think it's been sold to us so you can get a passive income from real estate. But then you start to realize after a couple of units, like 10 units, I would say for me, it was like 10 units plus. So when I started to realize, so it's very management intensive, we shifted over to commercial real estate and never go back since then. We just focus on capital raising part of it, and we just going into multifamily investments right now. So we have for example, deal in Dallas right now. So that's what we focus on. Thank you.
Awesome. Glad to have you.
Thank you, James.
Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, Frank Iglesias here. Been investing for over 15 years, primarily in the residential space, from your typical fix and flips to rentals. We've done a lot in the new construction space and development areas. Also have a passion for educating people. So I've been doing some coaching on the side, might be expanding on that. Got into the podcast side of the world. It's really fun to meet and network with a lot of people. And yeah, just really love the education space. That's something I used to do a lot even before real estate, both in the music and IT industries. So pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like my dad and mom were both teachers. And I didn't go down that path, but now I'm in it. I'm like, I love sharing what I know with people. So I feel you. All right, Eric, thanks.
Hey, thanks. And yeah, Frank, love the education stuff. Yeah, Eric Burns, Cincinnati, Ohio. I run Flowers Capital. Similar to Igor, I place private equity with um, tremendous operators in the commercial space. Most generally multifamily, but there's also definitely some other asset classes we get into, depending on the appetite for the investor. Really, I just like getting out there and talking to other entrepreneurs. And kind of my message is just kind of stop trading your time for money. Commercial real estate obviously is a great source of passive income. And yeah, I believe in financial freedom. And, my motto, live life bullish. So thanks for having me on, James, and great to meet you guys too. Yeah.
Fantastic. Cool. Let's dive into the news from Summit Daily right here in Colorado, where I'm from. Articles says Colorado mountain towns are full of vacant trophy homes and short-term rentals. Some officials want permission to tax them. So they're saying, if you read the article, vacancy rates are over 40%, which is a problem up there. The biggest concern is affordability for the workforce. You got all these beautiful homes in ski town. There's nowhere affordable for people to live. So, which is common in other areas too with short-term rentals, right? So, any thoughts on that?
I have a thought about because I'm in California, LA, right? So we do have a couple of resorts as well, and the one thing, it's really good for apartment buildings. Sorry to say that, but yeah, that gets pushed over to the more affordable spaces to live. But then the other problem is they just keeps raising, and like the price of this staying per night is just insane. Sometimes you look at the chain hotel, and it's a lot easier to stay there, right? And it's a lot more affordable. And I'm not sure what the city is going to do for the future, because I feel like they need to start to maybe parcel out the things, saying so there's 25% off the properties could be going through the short-term rentals, like Airbnb style, right? And then the rest of it should be, right, maybe like a long-term, or maybe for people, or maybe affordable. There's got to be something, right? Because I feel like we hit that button right now. So when people got into this Airbnb story, right, and now they start to realize it doesn't work, and the people start to, less travel and more work back to these spaces, right? I'm talking about the office spaces, right? And it starts to phase out a little bit. I think there's got to be something there, though, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's certainly no doubt that the short-term rental business is, that's a very active business. I've seen it originally, it was sort of pitched as a passive income thing, and I think any short-term rental operator knows it is anything but passive. But what I thought was interesting about this article was we got into the short-term rental business before it was a thing. In fact, it was called vacation homes. This was back in 2013, where we had purchased a lake house to flip. We ended up keeping it, so we were introduced to people such as HomeAway, which became or merged with VRBO, however that worked. We didn't even hear of Airbnb for years. And the one thing I thought was interesting was in the Southeast, at least, short-term rentals are taxed, a sales tax, when people would book online. And it was usually regulated through a VRBO or an Airbnb or similar. And on top of that, there was property taxes paid. So you're already being taxed twice. So I thought this was an interesting article. I was like, do they just, and I don't know the Colorado market, but do they not tax this thing out there? I don't know. That was very interesting.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's exactly how you described. Yeah. You're getting double taxed. And then they're talking about, in this article, a vacancy tax. So if you're leaving your property open, you're going to get taxed extra. So
yeah, and that tax to me seems super counterintuitive, where you have struggling operators that are if they're rented, they're bringing money into your local economy, especially in those little mountain towns and things like that. And yeah, for sure, like people living in Steamboat or working in Steamboat don't generally live there. Just that type of thing. So, but yeah, so you're saying, okay, well, you're already struggling to fill. We're going to tax you more, and So you're penalizing them for underperforming rather than encouraging them to have ways to get rented up, which is going to pass money into the local economy. So taxation wise, it's like you're kind of hurting the people that are trying to help your local economy. Like, in taxation wise, I just kind of feel like really, if you gave them some sort of incentive to perform rather than a penalty for underperforming, I think that would be a much better win-win. So while you're trying to cut the throat of the guys that are bringing your business, your local economy in, is beyond me. But that's kind of politics, right?
Yeah.
Well, and to your point, Eric, I agree it's counterintuitive. And where do you draw the line? Because if you tax the STR folks, well, then what about your regular landlord? What if they're doing a 2-3 month remodel? Are they going to tax? And then are you going to have to hire a workforce, the vacant home police, right? And who's paying for those people, right? So now everyone's taxes go up to hire the vacant tax police. Like, where does that line get drawn? It does seem very counterintuitive, I would agree.
Well, yeah, and and then where does the snowball effect end? It's like one negative effect for the STR, like you mentioned, Frank's going to lead to the landlord, going to lead to on down the line, and it's just like help these guys out, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And then imagine, what if you're the homeowner and you're just moving? Well, now your house is vacant. So do you get taxed because maybe you move for job transfer and the market's slow and it takes 6-12 months to sell your house? Right.
Yeah.
Now as a homeowner, it's definitely a slippery slope that could turn very steep very quickly.
Yeah. And it's a correcting market, and it's like, just let it correct itself rather than damage it. It's not going to work anyway.
And I think the biggest challenge as well for the bill, like and I was looking through the Big Bear Lake, right? This resort next to LA, right? And once the Airbnb start to become a thing, just look at the prices. It just skyrocketed because they bring in so much revenue per house, and everybody's chasing those, fix and flips around that area. So they know, I'm talking about the seller, they know they're going to be putting them on Airbnb, right? And they're going to triple the revenue, right? And then all of that quadruple effect is, look at the prices, and finally they start to come down. People start to realize, I bought Airbnb, I put all the work. There's no one, like nobody's living in there, right? So it's just empty for a long time. And then, so it's, I don't know, for me, it's a little weird situation. So it's got to be something there though.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I've had a lot of people come to me asking about buying short-term rentals up in the mountains. Well, it's limited. Like, they actually shut down any new applications for, short-term rental licenses for a while. I don't know if that's opened up, but even just making them cash flow right now is hard. And that's about the best cash flow you're going to get, right? So it's tough. Well,
Yeah, and Frank touched on that point too, where it's like anybody that's done the short-term rentals or, vacation leasing, the full-time job. I mean, that is a very intensive operation. There's a lot of layers, and it has to be systematized, or it is a nightmare. Being a landlord's a nightmare in and of itself, but then having a tenant flip every 3 days, I wouldn't even want to imagine it. I'd rather invest with somebody who already has a system in place for sure. But yeah, and people are going to sell at losses, and then somebody else is going to benefit from that. And it's just the way things work. Why they're trying to get, I just don't see that there is enough upside to this decision to say, hey, this might all go sideways in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Let's try it anyway because we need money now, is kind of how it sits with me.
Yeah. I know there's a few switching over to co-living, which is a space I'm in now, renting by the room. There's less management than short-term rentals, which is good. But the cash flows is good. Maybe not as good as short-term rentals, but if you got government shutting things down, HOAs shutting things down, at least it's an option. And it's filling this need for affordable housing too. So I think we're going to see that a lot more in the right areas, right? It's real estate.
Yeah. So, hey, James, let me ask you. So, with your model, how would this? Is there a way that you see that this could go ripple through the state into Denver and affect your co-model? Like, do you feel like this is going to be something that is going to start making a push to just kind of spread through all aspects of, real estate in that state? Is it going to be a slippery slope type of thing in your opinion, or?
Well, affordability is a problem in Colorado, no matter where you're at. Denver, definitely. In the mountains, even more. The good thing is like short-term rentals are getting hit with stuff like this. The opposite with co-living. In fact, our governor just passed a law saying there's no limit to how many unrelated people live in a home statewide. And so the doors are wide open now. So pad split is coming into this market. They're like the Airbnb for co-living. We're identified as one of their preferred vendors to help manage those properties. So I think the trend is definitely going that direction. So
yeah,
a lot of opportunity.
Co-living seems like a perfect thing for Denver. A lot of younger people migrate to Denver, where it's expensive, but there's like people that are, transient to this, and they might stay in Denver 5 years, move on. That'd be, that sounds like it'd be a perfect place for that model,
Yeah. I've got some friends that are doing it currently with their own homes, and they keep them filled, no problem. So it's a good indication that we're on the right track. So, well, hey, let's jump to the next news item from ABC 13 in Houston. Removing Texas property taxes could double sales tax, but experts believe casinos could bring relief. That's their plan, I guess.
Well, we do know that the casino thing has been tried more than a few times to bring in extra income in other states.
Yeah.
With varying levels of success. And I'm not a multifamily person, but we got some multifamily people here. We know that it all comes down to the quality of the operator. If the operator's solid management, as far as picking the right location, having the right model, bringing the right business in there to operate such an operation, then of course it could work out very well. Timing, of course, can also play a part of this. I'm originally from Atlanta, New Jersey, and so I remember when I was younger, Atlantic City was a heyday. Today, a little bit different world, right? And so, I see stuff like this, and I'm like, yeah, I think the wording is accurate. It could bring relief. It could just as easily be an epic disaster. So it really depends on who those people are, what's the product, what's the business model, who's going to operate it, and can they do it efficiently, effectively between the marketing and the operations to bring in who they want to bring in the money that they're foreseeing. So it's an interesting thought. It's an interesting proposal.
Why do you think that Atlantic City's kind of is not as popular as before from what you're seeing? Did you hear that?
Could you repeat that? It was a little funny.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like Atlantic City, you said it was really hopping and now it's not as much. Any idea why it's faded away?
I haven't lived in New Jersey for a while, so I remember growing up, enjoying it. It was fun, right? Going down there with Dad. Oh, look at all the cool lights and stuff. And, back when I was younger, Trump was doing his thing there, right? So he brought his glamour, the persona and all that. And I was too young to understand that at the time. But, going back, it's part of it's a little bit more on the memory side for me as an individual, right? Because that was something I did when I was younger. But it's interesting to see how that city has changed. When I was younger, it was vibrant. It was energetic. Now, yeah, the beach is great. It's beautiful. The boardwalk's cool. But you still see the boarded up buildings. You hear about the crime. The environment has changed. I'm not an expert Atlantic City, but I know just walking through it, this vibe is different.
Yeah.
This vibe is not and I think that I was reading about a casino that was built. I'm not sure if it opened or it wasn't open a long time, but on the outside looked like this big, huge, beautiful building, but it didn't work out for them. And you think about it now as a business owner, you're like, that's a very expensive mistake for something like that to not work out. When we see these large buildings and they're vacant, and you're like, wow, right? Like, how did that happen? So again, I don't know ultimately where Atlantic City is going today, but it is definitely a different vibe from the Atlantic City I remember in my younger days. And it's attention getting when you see large assets sitting unused. That gets your attention.
Yeah, especially as real estate investors are like, ooh,
Yes,
that's got
exactly.
a sting.
I mean, we see a house vacant and we're like, ugh, but a building, skyscraper, you're like, okay.
So I have I can comment because in California, right, it's close to the Las Vegas, and what I'm seeing the last 15 years, right, because I moved from Russia, right, and it's been like 15 years of me going to Vegas and seeing what's going on. So, and I'm talking about perspective of casino. I'm not the professional, right, in casino in Texas. I can't comment on that as much. But then looking through Vegas development, when I made it first in 2000, let's say 10, right, in Vegas, first of all, I was like, so can you build more? I was like, there's no way. There's a lot of different entertainment things, right? It's not going to be built as much. And looking now, I was like, oh my God. So the change and perspective of the city is just insane. So for the last 15 years, they brought one professional team, another professional team. So the UFC fighting, this and that. So what I'm saying, maybe if Texas come up with some plan for entertainment city, right, or maybe region, I don't know, the small part of some town, and that way they can bring the conjunction of different casinos and different entertainment things, right? Or I don't know, something like that. That might be, the way for people to travel less to Vegas or to travel from East Coast to. I mean, that's another. But again, that's something which is tried in Atlantic City, and it's probably, I don't know, can I call it failed? Maybe not. But again, it's a tough model. So maybe that way it's possible, but it's a lot of effort. We know that it's a lot of timing as well, because Vegas was built a long time ago, right? And it took them so many years to develop that concept. But now, me personally, like, I love going there, right? Because you feel like you're in a different planet for a day, and you go back to work like within like 4 hours. Let's say I'm talking about travel time, waiting, blah blah, all that together, right? So, and for example, for LA people, it's just a driving distance. Right, you just disconnect for one day, you come back to work. But what I'm saying is there's so many entertainment things in there. I don't know what's the annual revenue. I need to look it up right on Google. So that's freaking insane right now. So what's going on there in that city? So how much stuff they built for the last 15 years, unbelievable. So that's from that standpoint. If they can do that model, right, and a couple casinos and it's close by, they bring in the revenue, because people will travel, right? If there's a beautiful quality product and there's certain things like accommodation, you got golfing, you got this, that. So people will travel. They will bring a lot of money, right, to that thing. But again, can you do that? Can you actually, pull through the whole business plan? It's probably not easy. It's not the 5 years. It's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are great points Igor made. It is another planet going to Vegas, but they've been at it for a while. But to answer your point, James, and I looked it up because something Igor said triggered it. I was like, so what is going on in Atlantic City, just as an example? And the first two headlines are, hey, New Jersey casinos in Atlantic City not seeing summer tourism rebound, according to state regulators. And then a few months ago, hey, Atlantic City's casinos were less profitable in 2023, even with online help. And so it just sort of illustrates, like, I don't know what's going on in that particular part of Texas where they want to do that, but do they have all those factors, those pluses, those positives to really make an idea like that work. I don't know.
And
It's interesting.
and Anthony just dropped the comment, right? So in 2023, why I'm liking the 2023 more than 22, 21, because it's a little bit more organic, whether just all of that money printed by caused by the COVID-19, right? Because it starts to phase out, I feel like, in 23, and it says record-breaking revenue in Nevada, breaking in 23, not 22, 21, and it's a 15.5 billion in gaming revenue. So, which is just the strip alone, 8.9 billion out of it, though. Just the one tiny, like if you go like at night, it's going to take you like 3 minutes to pass all of that, right? 5 minutes. So if it's going to be green lights. So what I'm saying is that's the conjunction, like it's just a mecca of entertainment. But again, how easy is that to replicate? Very, very hard. Probably, in my opinion, very, very hard. And it takes a long time, like well over probably 100 years to them to do that.
Well, to your point, that note says it's a number approaching pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah.
So they're still coming back, but they're also Las Vegas.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. They got the Sphere now. I'm sure that's another big attractor. Forget how much that cost to build, but
yeah, and I think Igor, kind of what you're describing though, and Frank compared to Atlantic City would be like I feel like Vegas as a whole is nothing but a customer service experience. All the money you lose gambling is not even. So I was actually listening to a book by Nate Silver. It's one of his more recent ones, and he's describing the gaming industry, and the casinos do well in Las Vegas not because the house is always going to win. It's because they do so good at marketing and next level customer experiencing and all that sort of stuff that people get drawn to Las Vegas for the experience. So to say that a gambling establishment in Texas will do the same thing, it's a big unknown to be balancing your books off of, in my opinion. But it seems like a lot of these things are kind of going, well, why don't we do this? And then no one's really saying, well, like the other obvious point, like, hey, Texas isn't Las Vegas, right? Texas is cool, but Las Vegas is Las Vegas, that sort of thing.
I think they're, like it says, they're talking about eliminating property tax, but then it's going to have to teeter-totter and double their sales tax. So that was kind of the main point of this. But I guess if they added the casinos in, that would help.
And kind of really the summary I kind of keep thinking on both of these topics. It's like, the taxing and the government regulations and all this affects the way we do business. But as real estate professionals and entrepreneurs, like I think what we really need to think about is how do we stay ahead of the curve of this? Co-living, for example, like, hey, Airbnbs are getting jammed up, but this co-living is really great. And I was sitting with my uncle, who's a fabulous entrepreneur over the years. And I don't even know where he got this information, but he was saying, hey, if you can come up with a new idea, you've got about 6 or 7 years, and then your competitors are going to be saturating your market. So every 7 years, you better be moving on to some other newer product that's got a better edge. So, and he actually did that throughout he had a landscaping company when he was 22, I think. And he had this and he just built it and evolved. And over the years, he sold it recently and did really well. And it was just a really neat thing. But when he said that, I thought, yeah, you know what, that's true. So it's like navigating the now with how are we going to tax, how are we going to get through this, but also having eyes forward to like, okay, where's the next opportunity opening up? Not even in general, but is this opening up another opportunity that we may not see quite yet? So, yeah, I think for entrepreneurs, it's like, yeah, like it's easy to kind of get caught up in the aggravation of like, oh, they're taxing me to death. But at the same time, it's like, hey, stick to your vision. Keep do another pivot. It's fine. So it's definitely worth keeping up abreast on like, what are they doing? And I think that we all need to kind of keep in mind, like, okay, so if this happens, and that affects that short-term rental business really badly. Like, what other opportunities might be available for these products that are inevitably going to get foreclosed on, right? Like, that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, and so I don't know what the Texas sales or the Texas sales tax is now, thinking about the opportunity you were talking about, Eric. So obviously, if they remove property tax, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of revenues that disappear really fast. Probably made a lot of homeowners happy, but it probably also depends on where they live on the income scale, right? Because we'll just throw a number out there. Let's say it's 8%. Well, if I'm in a lower tax bracket and my tax goes from 8 to 16%, might not be too great a day. But if I'm in an higher tax bracket, it's going to be a little bit less of an impact. And those numbers, and again, I don't know, maybe those numbers work mathematically to where it's a win. No idea. But what we do know is if you eliminate property taxes for a state as big as Texas, that's a lot of people are going to get affected no matter what.
Yeah, it says they currently generate $80 billion annually.
My other perspective, sorry, Frank, are you done?
Oh yeah, no, I'm good.
My other perspective, like I've seen a lot of different price changes, right? But, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I never seen tax being like changed to the lower level. So like, is it part of the news? Yes. Is it realistic? I'm not sure about that part, because like you get $80 billion annually from the tax, and now you like, oh, you know what? I get like 40. That's fine. So it's too much 80. So we'll get 40. So I've never seen like government saying we're gonna get you less taxes tomorrow because of blah blah blah. It's very interesting news for me.
Yes.
I feel like they're up to something.
For sure.
Maybe politicians trying to get a seat somewhere.
That's what I'm saying. What is that news about?
Yeah. Speaking of politicians, let's go to the next one from Politico. Gavin Newsom kills California bill to help undocumented immigrants buy homes. So it was a state-backed home loan up to $150,000. So it was vetoed. You guys following the politics and Newsom in California?
Well, this is obviously one of those hot topic because of the political influence on it. And I thought to myself when I read something like this, if politics wasn't attached to this, how much traction would this get? How quickly would it be killed if we remove the political component? I think, and I could be wrong, but I think most people would be on board with the idea of, hey, we're not just going to grant undocumented immigrants a bunch of money just on its fundamental basis. But once you add politics, as we know, that has a way of just swaying opinion and elevating emotions and adding all sorts of drama that sometimes can confuse the most basic of issues, perhaps. Try to be nice here.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, you don't have to be nice. Like, I will go on the record and say, as soon as politicians involved, common sense is out the window. They're never going to do anything like. So let's be real. Like, politicians at all level, presidents, senators, congressmen, they all know the facts about the economy. They all know the fact. They all know the data. They have experts that weigh in. They all know how to get things right. But as soon as they become political, it doesn't matter. And they cannot be trusted to do, the smart thing, the practical thing. They're going to go always next level, So, and then again, it's kind of like, okay, so how do we react? Like them imposing taxes after the fact. That's a lagging indicator. Okay, we as investors found something that worked. Now they're going to tax it. Where are we going to move into? So something so politicized as like undocumented immigrants and things like that, that is like so far political outside of like what they're trying to make it like. Okay, like I guess they're trying to present it as a how do we get affordable loans to people that to buy houses, right? And then somewhere along the lines, it gets twisted into how do we get undocumented workers to buy houses? And then everybody blows up. It's like, well, like, you know, like we kind of forgot the main question. And now it's just like this whole boiling over thing. And it's like, guys, it doesn't have to be that complicated. So as far as like, yeah, trusting them, no, I'm apolitical for that reason. I do believe that there's a lot of ways we can kind of adjust our movements and kind of say, hey, you know what? Like let me get into something that's you know, a little more liquid or a little a little more recession resistant, anything like that. But it's like as soon as I personally get drawn into politically heated things, I also lose sight of like, wait a second, so if the basic question is how are we going to get affordable home loans to Americans that need them, undocumented or documented, it doesn't matter. How are we going to do that? Well, then you're already talking about the Federal Reserve and all this other stuff. So it's just this huge thing, and they take one aspect of it, they politicize about it, and you know, and it's like I just don't have an answer because politics has so many moving parts that I just don't understand. It goes way over my head a lot. So I'm not really great at the whole immigrant thing. That
Well, and
conversation.
you also get into that issue of how many citizens are struggling to take care of, you know, getting a home. And so just on its very face, the value of, oh my gosh, and you're right, and this is one of these things, it's a big rabbit hole, but if we're not taking care of U.S. citizens that are having this problem, why is the Photos even here in the first place, right? And of course, that is a conversation that could go on endlessly, it seems, in today's world. But yeah, some challenges out there.
I can give you my perspective because the funnest part ever, in Moscow, I was in Russia, Moscow, right? And this is the place where everybody wants to leave. It's like, and I found out the California kind of a little bit the same way because I'm biased, sorry guys, but again, so that's what I see from outside of my perspective. And it's very conservative in Russia, right? Everybody against the people coming in because it's just getting flooded. It's a lot of blah, 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 like criminals and stuff like that. So, but then on the other spectrum, I saw myself, right? And I'm very comfortable where I live and I'm established. I'm not pushing through, like maybe I'm not creating new ideas because I got the society paradox already in my brain and stuff like that. But and I'm the immigrant in Los Angeles, right? I'm just the first generation person who moved in, trying to figure out the life and all that stuff. And sorry, I'm going to say that it's going to kick my ass now, right? Because I need to do the work, right? I need to produce some stuff. I need to create something, the business, the value, this stuff, and like that. So what I'm trying to say is it's both of those perspectives are very, very tough. Why? Because there's a lot of people with good intentions crossing the border, right? And we should like help them to accommodate and whatever we need to do, right? Because they bring in new ideas to economy, new intention, the power, right? The energy, and right, and the economy grows. And I understand that. But then and I don't know which part of it is a 50-50 or 70-30. That's up to politicians to decide. But there's another part of that when people coming in and they do terrible things, right? They just, kill, murder, rob, and stuff like that. And it's true. But again, so it's up to politicians what they're going to do with that. And both of those things are happening at the same time. But it's very important I feel like right now I start to understand it's very important to have the immigrant part of it. So because it pushes the economy, pushes the ideas, bringing new things right into the community. And it is important, the security and safety of the things. And what I can tell big part of the, for example, the adult school education. I don't know if you guys familiar with that. There's adult school education that which has helped me to accommodate into the society of the United States, because they teach you how to, the history, right, of the country. They teach you the language. They teach you this. They teach you that and that. So maybe there's a solution there. So when you can educate people, and remember, there's a lot of ideas of if you educate, it lifts up everybody around, right? So, but again, should we give them houses for free? That's a question to politicians, and I'll let them decide those things. And again, so what is that news? Is it Governor Newsom trying to promote himself, like he's going to be giving out? I don't know. So very, very questionable thing.
Yeah.
So Igor, let me ask. So from your perspective, how do you see affordable housing loans? I feel like affordable housing loans and giving them to undocumented immigrants are really combining two political issues that really don't need to be combined. So I guess do you view those things as intertwined, Igor, or do you see them as two separate? Saying that, okay, well, we have undocumented immigrants, but how do we get them documented? How do we do this stuff? What does this look like? We've got a housing affordability problem. Well, how do we do this? How does it look like? I don't understand why they're trying to make it a both or nothing type of thing, all or nothing,
Well, to your point, Eric and Igor, what you were sharing really brought this back home. I remember in 2003, just over 21 years ago, it was the summer of 2003. I was not in real estate back then. I was in IT. I was in music, just doing my thing. And I had a good friend who was kind of introducing me over the last year or two at that point to the world of politics, and just like, oh, Frank, you should really pay attention to what's going on in the world. And, back then I'm in my early 30s. So I'm like, okay. And I'm Hispanic, by the way. I mean, I'm born here, but I am Hispanic. So I'm like, I can emphasize with that world and empathize. I'm sorry. And I remember thinking in 2003, telling my friend, I'm like, dude, like, there's a lot of smart people in this country, right? It's the United States of America. We have a lot of smart people here, millions of really smart people. How is this immigration issue just not resolved? Like, and to me, it was very simple. And this is Frank 2003. I'm thinking, and I was an IT guy, right? So everything was computer systems, like there's a process to everything. I'm like, if this immigration system is broken, dear politicians, doesn't matter which side of the table, come together and fix the system. And so now, fast forward all these years, now it's 21 years later, and not only is the system not improved, we somehow have found a way to make it worse. And the thing that blows me away is, why does the system itself never ultimately get fixed? And I was thinking this 21 years ago. So this has nothing really to do with what's going on. What's happening today is only amplifying, for me personally, what I was thinking as a Hispanic person 21 years ago. And it's mind boggling. So, yeah. So I really loved what you were sharing, Igor, about, you just, it's a different perspective. And you just wonder why some things that should get done don't get done. We certainly have enough intelligence and smart people in this country to fix it. Why doesn't it happen? I don't know.
Yeah. And I love what you said, Igor, about the influx of new ideas too. I mean, let's be real. What kind of idea in the United States have we ever come up with that wasn't from somebody who immigrated? Really? You know what I mean? Like, this is an eclectic, this is a melting pot. Like, we need the ideas, but we also need leaders that can put in place like systems that don't lead to issues like this, So
I think it's really, and again, I only have that perspective because of my experience, because I was on that border of the other side. So there's no immigration, like you got to kill everybody, right? So it's like a Donald Trump idea and stuff like that. So, but then I was like, start to realize and analyze, okay, once I came into my brain, number one, my brain has changed, like the way I just start to think and process the things. And you start to rewire yourself. And then I was like, okay, Uber company, this company, that company, who's like is the immigrant, India, China, this, Russia. So those are the people who has a internal burning desire of change. They just burn internally, right? There's nothing you can do, right? And then that's why they just produce insane results on the energy level when they start to get an idea first, and then they bring the people together, and then all of a sudden they just freaking like $80 million, and then they get 2 billion, right? And they just growing crazy because of that burning desire and idea, and they brought it from somewhere else though, because they couldn't realize that they cannot.
Yeah.
Good point.
Isn't it amazing when people produce, man, it's amazing what can happen, right? Yeah.
It's just incredible how much value produced by the ideas, not by the gold or money or something, by the ideas of other people. So it's like think and grow rich. That's the
Well, the reality is there's a lot of people that are here that are undocumented. I'm in real estate, right? We all know they're hanging out.
Yeah.
Some of those are some of the hardest working people I've met. I mean, they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
But they fear for right what could come tomorrow. They never have that certainty. And you sit there and you go, okay, we have laws, we should honor those laws, but at the same time they want to do the right thing, but they're afraid to do the right thing because there's not a confidence in the system from their perspective. And then, you have this article that basically puts it on a national megaphone. So it doesn't inspire confidence. It's like, yeah, okay, we're not going to give undocumented people 150 grand. Yay, awesome. But at the same time, the people that want to figure out a way to do it right, they're not it is complicated. Now it is complicated. But unfortunately, as a country, our politicians, for lack of a better term, allowed it to become this. So who are going to be the really sharp people that finally come up and solve the problem? I don't know. I'm not a politician.
I don't know. I kind of think it's like the politics aside. I mean, isn't it just so cool to stop and think, man, we live in a country that's so eclectic with so many different cultures. Like, it really is a melting pot. And how many neat experiences, ideas, and conversations have you come across with people that are so much different than you just because you happen to live in the United States? And so that's kind of where I'm kind of, I'm grateful in that. Like, the politics of immigration aside, that's all madness. I don't even really have the bandwidth for, really. But I'll tell you what, you go out and you just talk to Igor. We talked at one point about your life in Moscow earlier, and it was so interesting. Like, wow, it's just such a big world out there. And we're neat that we have access to each other and our experiences like we do here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
Good point. That's what I like about this show specifically, too. I mean, we got everybody from different backgrounds just on the show.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's keep things moving and go to our next article from Fortune. Rich Americans are buying investment properties abroad, but owners warn, quote, a lot of people lose a lot of money, unquote. They're talking about people buying overseas for the lifestyle, and some of them for the golden passports, which is definitely a thing. And then they mention legal complications, unanticipated expenses, and slow real estate processes that can lead to losses, especially in countries like Mexico. They kind of pointed out. I know some people buying Costa Rica, Portugal. Those are kind of hot areas right now. I don't know, what do you guys know about all this?
Well, I'll put it this way. Like, I would love to buy myself a house in Mexico or Belize or somewhere neat, but I would never place investor money in it. It just seems so many variables. You know what I mean? Like, the different laws. Like, I don't even know where I would go find a specialist that could walk me through it, let alone have somebody that I could be comfortable placing other people's money with. As far as like, does it excite me? Like, oh man, yeah, that'd be cool. Like, let's go live in the jungle for a little while or something. But and I know expatriatism is getting to be a little bit more popular in the United States. I've heard it from a few different sources now that it's increasing. I don't know much about it, but I'd love to hear. Frank, have you heard much about it?
Definitely, but we'll, yeah, yeah. I actually have a friend who he actually does business, not in real estate and more in the communication side, but he does business internationally. And the one thing he's always said to me over the years is, Frank, the return, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's basically the returns can be great, but you got to know you are taking a risk and anything can happen. Yeah, if I could sum up all my conversations with him, that's about what it would go. And he's done business in South America, Central America, specifically, and yeah, and I think it's no different in the real estate side. Like, I'm not a stock trader, for example. I'm not a day trader. I'm not a securities expert. But what I do know is I've always heard, whether true or not, what I've always heard is, hey, if you're going to invest in, the United States stock market, okay, great, whether it's, some on the Dow or the NASDAQ, whatever. But if you're going to go into an international stock exchange, that can be a little dicier, it can be a little more risky, it can be a little more volatile. So to me, it's like, why would real estate be any different? I know Mexico, obviously we've all heard of Cancun, right? Popular tourist destination. But as you go down the coast there, going down the Riviera, I guess, you have your Costa Maya, you have Cozumel, you've got Tulum. They've got beautiful resorts. I have a family member who she's like, I really want you to go see Tulum, and she actually said, hey, let's go buy something over there. And you see the pictures and you're like, that's beautiful. Of course, a few months ago they got hit by a hurricane, so I don't know what it looks like today. So there's risks with that. But then you hear about, hey, Cancun. And again, I don't know, but I've heard that Americans being targeted, tourists, by local gang people and so forth is up. It's not something I follow closely, but you hear these things and you're just kind of like, So I think on the surface, if I was going to go and invest internationally, I'm going to do a lot of due diligence. We might take that due diligence for granted here where I live in Atlanta because I live here. But I don't live there. I've never been to Tulum. I've never been, I've been to Cozumel on a cruise ship many years ago. But does that mean I know it? Of course not. Right. So I think it's just going to take a lot of due diligence. And you just got to know, hey, you're taking a risk. And anytime there's an investment, it could not work out. This is just it's amazing me how many times people say, they get into investments and they lose, and I can't believe it's an investment. And no world is investing guaranteed, to my knowledge.
I have a bunch of comments on that, but Igor, did you have any before I jump in?
Yeah, so I get a couple perspectives, and again, coming from different country, right? So the number one thing was for me always look at the court system and on which side the court system of that country, right? And how durable is that court system? Can you actually leverage that court system, right, to protect your assets and stuff like that? So, and then the United States of America, by far, it's not perfect, number one, right? And I don't see anywhere in the world it's perfect, but then it's by far a lot more beneficial for you if you got in trouble, especially in the real estate side, right? If you got ownership of something, right, on the real estate side, it's going to be very, very hard to penetrate or do something with you, right, and take it away from you, right? Especially by government, number one problem, right, in Russia, Mexico, and stuff like that, in those countries. So, and knowing that, so I see a lot of emotional purchases, and one of my friends and people I know from a couple cycles, right, and they go out to Belize. Oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful beach. I would love to see myself owning something right by the beach. And now the question is it just a financial purchase or it's emotional? And a lot of times what I'm seeing, right, from my experience, is just emotional purchase. People like, beautiful, blah, blah. And then they bought it and then they left and they're like, oh, why would they buy that thing? So, there's a management piece, there's this piece, there's that piece. So I've seen a lot of those things. But again, it all comes down, for my personal thing, it's like, what is the court system and who they represent usually, right? And how hard is that for me to lose that asset, right, in that country, right? So, and that's one perspective. The other perspective, one of my friends, he's doing the tax optimization. So I was like, where do you put your money right now? He was like, I just bought a lot of like a Swiss franc. I was like, oh my goodness, that's another perspective for the United States. I was like, why would you do that? He said, because we're going through the inflation, right? And I don't want to lose the value of the dollar because it's strong, but it's not as strong as blah, 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 somewhere else. But again, he's not buying the property there. He's not investing in the business there. He just playing the currency, right? Exchange rate play. So you said, look at the last 5 years, the Swiss franc is just going up, and up against the US dollar. So that's another perspective. Like he's going different country, but he's not going into real estate. He's not like inheriting the risk of going through the court system, right? And doing something like on the side of like, so just going through the process of any type of law problems. Like it's very simple play, but it's in different country though. And that's it. I'm going to stop here.
Yeah, and like the legal structures of all these different countries aside, and I'm sure it's like this with you guys. But when you take investor money or invest in yourself, your own money, they always say you want to, it's best to invest in your own backyard. So yeah, I mean, and to that, like I'm either investing in my own backyard, or I'm investing with sponsors that are in their own backyard. And in addition to that, I learned their backyard. So going into any market, submarket, anything without innate knowledge of how what the feel is, what the vibe is, any of that sort of stuff. But before you really understand the dynamics of the market, I wouldn't be comfortable investing anywhere. And it's just way on steroids when you're talking about another country, because not only are you talking about like a different backyard, you're talking about a different backyard in a different hemisphere,
Totally. So Antonio put it in the comments, Thailand and the Philippines, there's a lot of people going there for the low cost and the lifestyle, but you cannot own land in either of those countries. That's a problem, which leads into some comments back to Mexico. Like I know they used to have 99-year leases, and that's all well and good, but I know of 2 people or families that lost homes before that 99 years came up because the freaking mafia guys came in and just took over. Like they lost their homes. Like they bought those as second homes. They were going to retire there, gone. Like that's the kind of stuff where like these headlines come from, right? But that said, like I've been looking heavily at Mexico too. I run a real estate team based here in Colorado with my partner, Ana Holka. She's from Mexico, has family in different areas. And so because we have people asking and wanting to invest in Mexico, we're doing a lot of due diligence and setting up partnerships with people that are there in different cities in Mexico that know, like you don't invest here or here. Here's a good place. Here's where you're going to get your best returns, and really know all the laws, the gotchas, so that you can actually do it safely because it's their backyard. And so as long as we feel comfortable with the information they're giving us, then we can pass that on to investors. So
yeah, exactly. You got a sponsor you're comfortable with her infrastructure, and she's comfortable with her backyard. I mean, that's kind of what we're doing here. So, yeah, super cool. Are you think? Sorry, go ahead, Igor.
Yeah, I just want to pick up the James perspective. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. So, do you want to play on their backyard, or you want to play on the law backyard. It's not theirs. It's not mine. It's nobody else's. It's just a law backyard. So it's a universal law. So you want to go by rules. Okay. So, and you want to get rich for sure. So stay with the United States. You want to take a chance. You want to go out and double and triple, quadruple your money. Okay. There's no magic. Like, if you want to take all of that risk to yourself and say, I'm going to lose it, or I'm going to make triple, right? Or quadruple. So.
Yeah.
Good word. Good word.
Yeah. Well, let's take a break to learn from one of our sponsors, and then we'll get back to the news.
Tired of chasing those elusive off-market deals? Sick of feeling like you're always one step behind the competition? Well, hold on to your hats, because Flipbid is here to change the game. Flipbid is a revolutionary new platform that connects you with off-market properties like never before. Imagine getting instant notifications on those golden deals before anyone else does. Virtual tours? Check. Real-time notifications? Double check. Seamless communications with sellers, buyers, and other investors? Triple check. Flipbid isn't just another app. It's your secret weapon to the real estate game. Ready to flip the script on your investing journey? Head over to UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/flipbid now to snag 20% off the Pro Plan. Yes, you heard that right, 20% off. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, Flipbid is designed to help you crush it in the world of real estate investing. Don't miss out on this epic deal. This offer won't last forever, so what are you waiting for? Visit UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/flipbid now and join the revolution. That's UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/FLIPPBIDD. Your future self will thank you. Flipbid, where your next big deal awaits. Let's make some magic happen.
All right. If you zoned out during that ad, that's Flipbid. It's a new platform that is pretty incredible, and they're building and adding to it constantly. But tonight, they believe so much in this that they're doing a series called the TKO Technology Knockout Series, where they're going to go head to head with any other platform, and this is going to be live. So they're going to answer questions. So if you're currently using some other prop tech app, investing app, you can go in and ask them questions about theirs. And so that's actually tonight, live stream at 6:30 Eastern time. So just for your time zone. And so go to UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/FBTKO. That's FBTKO at UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com. So, all right, let's get into our next news from Fox Business. Real estate scams are on the rise. Here's what to look out for. They're talking about fake property listings, mortgage relief scams, which I haven't seen myself, at least in my feed, and fraudulent wiring instructions, which I've heard about quite a bit. So it says the FTC has actually issued over 20 million in refunds to people that have been affected. So I didn't know anybody was getting refunds. That's good. Any thoughts? Nothing?
I'm not seeing anything like that. So things got, so maybe just the bad deals. That's what I'm seeing. But again, have no experience with that one.
I don't know. I've heard of a couple instances here in Colorado, like through our brokerage, where people have gotten dinged. They lose big amounts of money too.
Yeah, I felt like I had just heard somebody got their deed stolen or something like that. They went to sell the house, had all this sort of stuff. It's like, I wonder how much of it's already, it's not even going to come up until a sale comes and they do the, they do all the due diligence and find out, oh, wait, this guy's been scammed from 5 years ago. It's so many scammers everywhere, though. So why not real estate?
Right. Yeah. Actually, we have an article coming up where somebody tried to pull a fast one.
Well, there's my closing attorneys that I've worked with, they'll share stories like this from time to time. So it's definitely real. I can tell you from firsthand experience, we had a deal once. We bought it from a wholesaler, and no different than any other deal, didn't really think anything of it. And then we were going to go get a construction loan after we'd purchased it. And I was then informed of a problem. And I remember sitting in my closing attorney's office, and we weren't closing it at this point for construction funds. It was kind of like, hey, we need to figure this out. And they got a nonprofit on the phone. I'm not going to name the nonprofit, but a nonprofit was basically claiming ownership of the property. Now, when you go to buy a property, generally a nonprofit being involved is not what's going through your mind as a potential challenge you might have to deal with. But they had the counsel on the phone of this nonprofit, and he was like, no, the nonprofit owns the property. And we're like, well, no, wait a minute. We own the property. Like, we had closing docs, the HUD, the whole 9 yards. And the long and short of it, and I never found out what the ultimate thing that happened here was, but it was alleged that the person the wholesaler bought it from was a fraudulent seller who had restarted a dissolved business and apparently did a really good job to the point where it fooled the closing attorney who did this closing for the wholesaler, and then sold it to us. It was a back-to-back close. But yeah, someone apparently started this business, and now all of a sudden I'm in the middle of, do we actually own this property? And so a title claim gets filed, and of course, and this is how I learned. So one thing I've learned is do everything humanly possible to not get caught up in a title claim. Because now the title insurance company goes and they hire an attorney who's working for you, but you're not paying them. The title insurer is paying for them. And so that was an interesting thing. For almost a year, we didn't know if we owned this property. Now, this was a property that needed to be demoed. So imagine now code enforcement is like, hey, you need to clean this up. I'm like, I don't even know if I own the thing. So they had to back off. And so they filed their little thing, but they kind of left me alone because they're like, well, how do we know? Well, here's the law. Feel free to call the attorney. And they're like, all right, call us when you figure it out, Frank. And I'm like, well, I'm not the one figuring. The long and short of it is the title insurance company basically paid the nonprofit to go away. On top of that, the title work done was so shabby that there was like a couple of judgments that weren't found. A tax deed wasn't paid off. I mean, it was like, they were like, Frank, typically when we deal with an issue, it's one of these problems. Rare that it's this many problems at once. And I'm like, Murphy's my best friend. I don't know. I can't speak to that. But, it did get resolved. And then we proceeded to finally, get a construction loan and close it out. But wow, it was like an almost year-long lesson on this is why you get title insurance. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This should never even remotely be something of, I should save a few $100 or a few thousand. Absolutely not, because it was a nearly 1 year long. It's easy to say nightmare, but I choose a positive answer and say it was a positive experience. But wow, it all started because one guy was trying to scam somebody, and he found a wholesaler. And of course, the wholesaler didn't know. He's just trying to make a few bucks flipping a property quickly. And then I end up with a 1 year problem almost. It was crazy. So yeah, the scam thing is real. It's interesting that the article says, it's on the rise. I'm like, I don't know that it ever went anywhere, maybe more publicized. But, real world experience. What a teacher sometimes.
Yeah, that's quite a
and
story.
back to Frank's advice for anybody that missed it, buy the title insurance.
100%, 1,000%.
Yeah.
If they bill you too much for the title insurance, pay for it. It's way cheaper than the drama.
Yeah. And I'd add, just if you're wiring money to we use title companies here in Colorado, but call the title company. Don't just go off emails, because those can be faked. So
yeah, we've seen that too.
Yeah.
That was. And I'm glad you brought that up. And when we get into investing, and I don't know about the commercial space, Igor, Eric, maybe you guys should speak to that. But on the residential space, people are like, "Oh, your attorney will take care of everything. It'll be fine." Well, you don't know if your attorney's verifying wiring instructions. Are they picking up the phone, calling? I guarantee you some of them are not, because I've experienced it. And so now when I go to a closing attorney, I was like, "Hey, somebody's getting paid off. Make sure you call them to verify." And then I call the person getting paid off. Make sure they call you to verify. Some people get annoyed. They don't want to do it. And I get it, because if you've never had experienced or been near wire fraud, it's a hassle, right? Oh, I got to pick up the phone. I got to call someone. I sadly met someone that had to deal with it because a law firm apparently did not call. Now, I wasn't there, so I don't know, but that's my understanding. Is that true? I have no idea. But here's what I do know. That's a very ugly thing to witness. And so I scream from the rooftop megaphone, call and verify. I don't care if they get mad at you, let them get mad at you. Call and verify. It's absolutely worth them getting mad at you to make sure it's right before you press that send button.
In residential, you might be doing higher volume, but it's not any less. You still, there's still the same problems that can come up in every deal. Just because there's more deals being done doesn't mean these problems don't exist. It just means you got to look out for them more.
No, make the phone call, put in the effort, 100%.
Frank, you remind me of fun stories. It's not fraudulent, but it's fun stories. So I'm closing deal in California, and I'm running all over the place. It's about to be closed. Call my agent. She said, "I can't pick up the check. You need to do something, right? Maybe I'm going to send a messenger." And I'm just in my head, right, thinking about the deal. And then somebody knocking my door, like, tuk, tuk, tuk. And I was like, "Oh my God, who's that person?" And then I opened the door and he said, "Oh, I'm here to pick up the check for the escrow account." And I was like, "How's that possible?" Like, so fast, so quick, and maybe like an hour after the conversation. And I'm just, I don't know why, I'm just busy writing down the check. So give him envelope, and he left. And I'm just sitting down. I was like, "Oh my God, who's that guy?" Like, he just came in, got my check, and he left. And I was like so paranoid. And I called my agent, and she's not picking up. I was like, "Oh my goodness, how did they know they need to check for it?" Like, I was like so paranoid. All of a sudden, it was Messenger, it was fine. But I was like, why wouldn't I call and verify before I hand out the check? You know what I mean? So, because it was just a random person. So maybe, and it couldn't be a scam, because maybe that somebody listened or got the chain of emails, and they just show up and get that check. So, but again, it was fine at the end, but I was like so paranoid. I was like, "Oh my God, why would I give him a check though?"
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone, Igor's giving out free money. I'll post his address in the chat. Just tell him you're there for earnest money.
Awesome. Hey, let's go to the next article. CNBC Make It is the source. Homebuyers have a fresh bargaining chip to play following new rules for how real estate agents are paid. As an agent, following all this, it's just it's a mess. Are any of you three licensed as agents or familiar with this NAR lawsuit?
Very familiar.
But no. Up until about a month ago, I actually had it on hold because I'm just really I don't use it enough to keep it, but I've been looking up with that, and it's kind of like, again, I feel like it's a lot of reactionary kind of things for just a unstable housing market. So you got your license, James. What's your thoughts?
Oh, let's see. How do we keep this brief and not make it too confusing? Well, in this article, it says a recent rule change allows home buyers to negotiate their real estate agent fees up front. They're making it sound like it's something new. It's always been negotiable, both on the listing side and the buy side. Nothing's changed. But it's good because as a buyer, you need to have that conversation with your buyer agent. And now I think it's more important, especially for the buyer agents, to have this conversation and agree to how much that buyer agent that you're hiring is going to get paid, right? So start out with that agreement. Now, the other side is like when you go to make offers, the major change in this is that if you're listing a home with an agent, you're not allowed to put how much commission you're offering to the buyer agent. It's not published. So now it comes down to when you make an offer as a buyer, you can either pay your buyer agent directly out of pocket, which the problem here is that if you're a first-time home buyer or you're like in that lower price range, you probably don't have that money to pay. You've barely got enough money for your down payment and closing costs, right? So you're at a disadvantage. You're going to need to make an offer on that home where that commission is coming out of the overall proceeds of the sale. Hopefully that didn't come out too confusing. Trying to keep it simple. That's my best shot at explaining that.
Yeah, in Ohio was standard 3 and 3. Up front, everybody knew it. It was always negotiable, but we just never did it. I would never lower my commission lower than 3% on a deal. If anything, I'm going higher now that it's negotiable. It's like, oh, you want me to come do this, and like, okay, well, I'm 5%, but you could talk me down to 3, but you're certainly not talking me down from 3. You know what I mean? But the troubling part is that it's just the whole transparency that is in place, at least in Ohio, for real estate transactions. It's like, everyone's getting the 3%. Then they get the 3. It's all clear to say, hey, it's negotiable, but we're not telling you what we negotiate. It's just such a deviation from standard practice that is standard practice because it's transparent, and it leads to fewer lawsuits and all sorts of things. So this whole thing has been baffling to me. Like, I don't understand who's getting a benefit and where they're getting it from. It's just like out of nowhere. I'm like, it seems like a whole wrench being thrown in the operation, but I don't understand why. So I'd love to learn more about it.
I think it was a confused seller or sellers and attorneys that made a boatload in that lawsuit. Sellers that were part of that suit only got like $15, I heard, while these attorneys made millions. And guess what's coming? There's going to be buyers and attorneys going, hey, you want to start a lawsuit from the buy side now? Because it's really hurt these buyers, especially the first-time home buyers, like I said. So here we go again. Like, get ready.
This is going to be a very interesting thing. Like our market today is, it's a buyer's market by and large. I mean, there might be some pockets that are still seller heavy, but by and large, it's shifted. What will this rule look like when it becomes a seller's market? Well, we don't know, right? It'll be interesting. But some thoughts I will share is when it first happened, when the ruling first came down, one of my agents said to me something that I thought was really cool, especially coming from an agent. She said, well, sellers are no longer going to have to pay someone if they don't want to negotiate against them.
Yeah.
And as a seller, that made sense. It's one of the most frustrating things when you sell as an investor is I'm paying somebody to basically beat me up.
Yeah.
So that is, and not saying all buyer's agents beat you up, but some of them do. That's just the reality of it. You're the big bad investor seller, stereotypical. They know nothing about you. They might not even know your name other than you're selling a house. But because you're an investor-owned property, you're the bad guy. So in that sense, yeah, I do like the rule. In another sense, I remember I got to speak at a brokerage earlier this year, and they were having one of their all-day events. And incidentally, I walked in to their session, the last 5-10 minutes before it was my turn to speak, and the person was speaking on this very subject. And she said something that I thought was very interesting. They were talking about, buyer's agents. This is an opportunity to show your value. The ones that don't show their value, you might fall by the wayside. Now, will that happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
But they said, don't look at the ruling as a bad thing. Look at it as, hey, this is an opportunity to show your worth, not only to your buyer clients, but also to the sellers. And so we're selling a property right now, for example, and we'll get a call, and I say we, because I'm not the one with the license, but someone on my team has a license. And the first call, and she tells me the first call she's getting typically is, what are you paying the buyer's agent? And I sit there and I think to myself, is that really the best question you should be asking? If your true goal is to provide value for your client and they're interested in a property and your first question is, how do I get paid? I think there's a problem there. And I'm sure that could be debated 100 different ways, but I don't think that should be the first question. Taking the idea further, though, how many other transactions happen in business in the United States where the representation of the seller pays for the buyer side? Okay, I don't know of any. So to me, the idea of, hey, buyer, figure this out with your agent, I'm like, well, that's no different than a lot of other things, right? So I don't even see the ruling as a problem. Now, don't get me wrong, it does create some new problems because of the history and how things have typically gone. And maybe those solutions haven't been thought through thoroughly enough in the name of a class action lawsuit. I don't know. But, it will work out, and I think the industry will evolve. And ultimately, the people that bring value to the transaction, just like in any other field, it'll be fine. It'll work itself out somehow. Yeah. But if you're not the person that offers value, then it's probably not going to work out. But that's no different than any other business.
Yeah.
I guess my fear would be to say, is there? It's almost like you're linking monetary compensation as a temptation to act unethically. So if you're coming in and a buyer's agent's paying 3%, or the buyer agent's getting paid 3% or 1.5% on two separate deals, you have to remain impartial to say and be your client's advocate, regardless of what you're paying. But when there's money involved, it's like, oh crap, it gets a little harder, and it gets a little bit, you got to be more disciplined too, I think. But you start spreading that all over the country, is that going to be almost an incentive for people to be unethical or steer or do these sorts of things? I guess that would kind of be my fear a little bit, Frank.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. But then I think about, I think back to 2021 when prices went, right? They just went crazy. Now the seller's holding all the chips, right? Now what are buyer's agents going to do? Because the seller's going to be like, I'm not paying anybody. I'm just going to sit, right? So it's a pendulum thing. So I agree with you. There's some challenges that definitely need to be worked out, and there's some legitimate fears that got to be sorted through, and it's going to be interesting. That we do know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, we could really go down a rabbit hole with this one. I know. Yeah. So I do a lot of listings, and as soon as this switched over and, the commissions weren't published, I get calls from these buyer agents. What are you paying? And my initial response was, I'm not telling you. And this is kind of coming from my managing brokers. They're like, don't show your cards, just tell these buyer agents to write it into the contract. Same as it always has been. Just, what do you want to get paid? What does your client, your buyer client, want to write into that contract for you to get paid? But the flip side of it is, if you have a seller that's really motivated, they might want to let people know, hey, we're paying whatever that amount is, 5%, 10%, whatever they're offering. And that's in our listing contracts typically. But we don't have to share that. But it's just two ways to think about it. It's a conversation as an agent to have with your sellers. Like, do you want to tell them what you're offering? Because it could, like, as an example, I just listed a home for some friends of mine that are moving back to Ohio, Eric. They had agreed to pay 3%, but since it wasn't published, I just kind of kept my mouth shut, and we got an offer that came in at 2.8%. So I saved them 0.2% by just not saying anything, right? And everybody's happy. But anyway, good example of how that dynamic works. So should we move on or keep going down this rabbit hole?
No, that's an endless rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I just recently heard. So get this: the seller that started this whole mess, started this class action lawsuit, just started their own brokerage. The seller started their own brokerage, a discount brokerage.
Wow.
Kind of an interesting turn. We'll see if they survive,
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. With technology today, you're always hearing about, right? Like, if you're in the business, we understand a good real estate agent brings real value. We get that. But if you're not in this business, and with all the information available online, I wouldn't be surprised to see more people either start these discount brokerages. I mean, you've seen a rise already in flat fee listings. To what degree, I don't know, but I know in my market, I've seen a lot more of them now than I did 10 years ago.
Sure.
And, I think you'll see more people take the bull by the horn, so to speak, to handle their own business. And that's okay, because even that's not new, right? For sale by owner has been around forever. That's still out there.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, people just have more options, and they can choose. And, to your point about, well, what about that buyer that can't afford an agent? Because that's a very real buyer as well, right?
Right.
The beautiful thing is 20 years ago, we didn't have all this information online that we do today. They can go do their research. They can go get educated. They can say, you know what, I can't afford this person, but can they learn about due diligence, all the steps of a closing? I didn't learn it all. It's all out there. And if they're studious and they really educate themselves, they can figure a lot of stuff out. And then everybody has a friend who's a real estate agent, right? Right. We all know everyone knows at least 5 probably. And, so it's not like they don't have options.
Yeah.
Options that exist today to empower people that didn't exist in the past. So, that'll play a part.
Yeah. I know we're kind of running behind on time here, but I had a friend mention using a discount buyer brokerage. I won't name who they are, but things went well. He didn't have any problems, but I started asking some questions and kind of recalling some comments that I'd heard about that brokerage, where there was issues like the brokers are on staff, like they're not commission based. that could be a problem, if you've ever been on either side of that. Like if you're commission based, you're working your tail off, where if you're on salary, whatever. So that's kind of maybe a first red flag, that maybe they're not being a fiduciary for you, if compared to if they were commission based, right? And then apparently might have one person go and show homes, but then somebody else is writing a contract. So you've got multiple people and miscommunication and slow communication, things like as you guys know, on real estate transaction, you got to be on it quickly and have clear communication. Otherwise it can fall off the rails pretty quick. So just wanted to throw that out there. If anybody's thinking about using a discount brokerage, sometimes you get what you pay for, right? So let's see. That's all I had to add without going down the rabbit hole. Plus, to keep things going, I think we're going to skip the next article. And let's see. So I guess the next one will be from Fast Company. A silent culprit behind the housing market's shortage of entry-level homes. So let's see, they're talking about multiple things like zoning laws, tightened lending standards, and consumer preference for larger homes. They kind of dive into the fact that like builders, there's economies of scale, so they make more if they build larger homes, but those are more expensive too. So that's where these entry-level homes are kind of not getting the focus from the developers. That's the summary. Any comments on that?
Well, I've built a lot of homes, so I can definitely tell you building small homes is expensive in our market in the city. If you go out in the suburbs, more rural, you'll save some money. But the reality, this one's pretty simple. Inflation has totally hurt. What I used to spend $100 a square foot to build for today is, could easily be between 65 to 100% more to do the exact same thing, roughly 4 or 5 years later. So it's very expensive now, and that has that's going to impact every price point. But that low price point for first time homeowners, smaller homes, entry level homes, that's a killer. It's a killer.
Yeah, it's always been that way, right? But it just seems to be worse now, would you say? As far as building affordable homes.
I built homes for roughly 8 years, and it's only, the prices have only gone up. But in the last 2 or 3, we had this, right? We're going up a little, and you might have some ups and downs, and then we saw where lumber went crazy, but then when it came down, and then it did that. It did that multiple times. But the overall cost of everything at this point, by and large, is up. And people say, well, plywood's down, 2x4s are cheap. I'm like, yeah, but my AC guy, he's been screaming for the last 4 years, where it costs double what it used to cost, 4 years ago. So there's a lot of trades that go into a house. There's a lot of materials. There's a lot of dynamics into all of those different worlds. And at the end of the day, it's a net significant increase.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments, Igor, Eric?
I have a friend who's actually doing the custom homes and for sale, right? And one of them I talked over the weekend, and he said, I can't sell it for the last 4 months. I just built it in, let's say, before the summer starts. And then so we were on the market proactively, and so can't sell the thing. It was beautiful custom home. And I think this is what and that's one example. The other example, like he just built, he's like upscale houses. and it's a $40 million property. They couldn't sell it for 2 years. And that's a challenge. And I can imagine how much money they lose every single day with that property. So, but at the same time, what I'm saying is it's it's big, and the market shifted. So, and I don't know what they're going to do. So one of the solutions, what I see for people, I'm talking about people right now in buying houses, it's just big nationwide companies like KB Homes. They do not the custom homes, but just the prefabricated homes. And it's pretty affordable if you go out a little bit, right? So you're buying, we got Lake Elsinore project. So they build in, I think it's a starting price of 560, 570. That's a starting price of the home. And if you move closer to LA, it's like easily 1 point something, right? So, and that's the difference. Maybe those are feeling a little bit better. I'm talking about nationwide big builders, so who just, put them as a cookie cutter, 20, 30, 100 homes together. So maybe that's the solution right now for people. So that's my just observation right now.
Igor, in your world, in the multi-space, do any of your projects deal with significant construction? Like, do you run into that in what you do, or you kind of more the turnkey, light maintenance type stuff?
Thank you for your question. One project is bankrupt right now. And part of it, construction cost, part of it, problem inside of the JP position. So, and the other project, it was a larger company. So they had a debt fund. They borrow a lot of money because the construction price was all in, it was 3.7, I think. And it's became 8.3. That's how much it changed. Because of the pricing, because of certain regulations from the city, they came in, they said, you need to reinforce the concrete and stuff like that. So there's a basement problem and stuff. So basically what I'm saying is every time we got into the project was a deep construction, which is, again, it's touching building and touching timelines. It's a supply chain, right, problem and stuff like that. So we couldn't make it work as much. So when it was a light renovation, I would say it was just working really well. So once it get into the construction weeds, so it was very, very hard to manage the project.
So you're mainly doing value add?
Yeah, after those experiences, so we said, let's keep it a little bit more simple, so less construction involved.
Yeah. Sometimes that's where you're making your money, though, right? Those big construction deals, but it's also risk, right?
Yeah.
And
that's just an experience of us saying, okay, we can triple the investment. So, but again, so now knowing better, you can triple the investment, but you got to inherit that, all of that risk, all of the timelines, all the, possible things could happen right during the construction period. So, and there is a risk of doing that. And Frank knows that better, right? But it looks really nice. The project going well, and then you dig down and that's it. It changes the perspective. It's probably doubled sometimes. Again, you dig down, there's a wire. You dig down, there's certain restrictions. The guy from the city came, show up, right? The inspector, and you'd say you got to do this and that, and nobody knew that before you started. So, but now it's just different.
Yeah, actually, and it kind of recalls when my very first duplex I renovated, I did it all on my own, sweat equity, learned so much, right? But there is, when you're talking about bigger projects, heavier value adds or developments or anything, that overage, that time overage, material overages and things like that, that's a huge underwriting point. And I don't actually have like hard numbers on what people are underwriting to now, but there's definitely a threshold of what's going to be a conservative number. Or, if you're using a 3% or something, it's like, yeah, that's probably not going to work. Especially with as many, it sounds like a lot of new builds are coming online too, is kind of what I'm feeling, what I've been hearing, I guess. But also, so large scale projects are going to be in process for a number of years now. So I don't know that that's ever going to really settle down anytime soon. I don't know where anybody would be able to come in and do a smaller project like you were at that, without that extra 75% per foot, Frank.
Yeah, no. We haven't seen prices like that in a long time.
Yeah.
But
75% higher.
Yeah. One thing to Igor's point is, I don't know what your timeline of project is, Igor, in that space, but I'm sure it's not short. I'm sorry?
A couple of years, that specific.
Couple of years. So I'm glad you said that, because a lot can happen in a couple of years. Like, one of my attorney friends told me, I guess it was a couple months ago, I was chatting with her and she said, Frank, a lot of her builder clients that she worked with, the reason they're able to build today is not because they bought property today. It's because they bought it 2, 3, 4 years ago. And the project timelines are so long that it's literally that long before they can build. And if we bought 2, 3, 4 years ago, okay, you might have gotten a deal, but you can't get it today. I'm not to say you can't, but it's a lot harder because of the higher costs. And when I see an article like this, the silent culprit, I think one of the biggest culprits really is time works against you when you're dealing with projects that by default just take a long time. Just to build a single house in a lot of places, end to end, before you get a survey to where you get it done, it could easily be a year. It could easily be more than a year in many markets. Yeah. And so it's almost interesting when I see things like that. Well, it's almost like there's a flip a switch solution out there, when really the biggest switch is our own processes. And I'm not saying us specifically, but it could be internal, could be external, could be the municipality you're in, could be all of those. That just creates time, and a lot can happen in markets when you had time.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's take a break for our next sponsor.
Are you looking to elevate your business through exceptional content? Universe Media Publishing is your gateway to success. We understand that in the world of business, content is king, but not just any content. Your business deserves content that captivates, convinces, and converts your audience into clients. At Universe Media Publishing, we specialize in crafting SEO-rich web content, persuasive copywriting, and marketing copy that resonates with your audience. We don't just write, we engage, we connect, and we deliver results. Imagine your brand's voice amplified, your message crystal clear, and your presence dominating the digital landscape. That's the power of partnering with Universe Media Publishing. Don't let your business just blend in. Stand out, be heard, and make an impact. Connect with us at Universe Media Publishing, and let's turn your vision into reality. Visit universemediapublishing.com today. Your story, our expertise. Together, we'll create magic.
All right. From WRAL News, Raleigh man believes woman filed fraudulent deed on his home to squat there. Slow eviction process. So this is kind of back to the fraud stuff we were talking about before, because she created some kind of fake deed and submitted it to the county register. The gotcha was, I think, that they didn't verify her identity and the ownership. So from what I gather, it's more kind of the county was at fault, and he had to fight it. There was like, he was facing $8,000 in legal fees. So you guys have any comments on that, or should we jump to the next article?
It's a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's kind of similar to what we were, kind of some of those other ones. Yeah, I'm okay to skip to the Bezos one's kind of interesting.
I just came from Seattle, so I would love to hear Bezos' story as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Let's see. Yeah, let's jump to the next one. So, Antonio, yeah, I'm following my doc. So if you changed anything in the Google Doc, I'm using the original. So anyway, from CBS News, Mogul sues real estate firm for allegedly hiding Jeff Bezos was purchaser of his $79 million home. Woo! That's a whopper. So I guess
The thing that when I was looking at this one, it's like, why would you ever misrepresent that? I just don't understand why it's so hard to just tell the truth and go with it. You know what I mean? Like he was not going to find out Bezos bought the house, over at $80 million deal, and they're $6 million. They saved $6 million by lying. Great. Now look.
Right.
Yeah.
It's gray area because he was asked point blank, right, who the buyer was. Of course, he's going to want to know. But like in our Colorado contract to buy and sell, and in our listing agreement, there's a checkbox there, specifically disclosure of buyer's identity. And so the buyer has the choice of saying who they are or hiding that. But then this guy got kind of in a spot where they asked him.
Right.
So they're
well,
really
what was in that contract, right? Right. What if the contract said he doesn't want to disclose? I don't know.
Maybe, that's what it was. Yeah. Otherwise,
and maybe he didn't want to answer, but he just worded it the wrong way. Who knows, right? Who knows?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm making more sophisticated. Like I feel like Bezos probably, and again, that's my assumption, does not own under his name anything right now at this point of his career, right? Because he's like a very public, and again, having my friend, and it's all foundations, it's all layered, it's all trust. Like nobody knows what's going on in transaction. Like nobody. Like unless it's like, what, I want to be more hyped up, and here's the foundation owns by it, blah blah blah. So what I'm saying is, how do they know that? And then maybe it's possibly so it was under the trust name or foundation name and something like that. So, and it's big news probably for newspaper.
Yeah, and if he didn't have to
just own house by his name, $79 million house, and just the Jeff Bezos on the deal.
Well, when you're dealing with property in that price point, and it's a home, I mean, 79 million, 85 million, both of these parties can afford the attorneys to duke it out, and they just care. It's a whole different level. That's a whole different level of problem, right? So.
Almost insinuating that Bezos is not having this conversation over his own lawsuit. But yeah, but that's a good point that you brought up. Like, maybe he misworded it. He didn't have to disclose it anyway, and then answered it in a wrong way. Instead of saying, I'm not supposed to disclose, he said no. But well, I wonder what state it was in. Did it say? I didn't see.
This was Florida.
So like without being like a lawyer or anything,
Yeah, it's. I'm sure there's more to this story than what's in this article.
Yeah,
we know.
Florida. Yeah, Antonio says it was in Florida.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out, I'm sure.
Oh, Florida.
I saw Cape Coral was on one of the top cities for small businesses now down there in Southwest Florida. It's kind of interesting that it's like Fort Myers near, but it was just kind of an interesting outlier on the list I saw today. Just kind of a side note.
Interesting. Well, it leads into our next article from 7 News Miami. Quote, I don't think any property is safe, unquote. South Florida man says he almost became victim to an AI real estate fraud. So get this. They were on a Zoom. Title company noticed something a little off on the Zoom. apparently the image of the seller on the Zoom, it matched the ID documents, so it was supposedly the right seller, but the seller was AI generated. And it turns out that the actual owner had passed away, so they generated this AI. I'm assuming video. I mean, it's on Zoom, so that's a crazy technology. It's good they caught that, though. Let's see.
Well, we do know there are tools out there that will create an AI avatar of you it's getting quite good. But, and I don't know how many tools are out there. The ones that I've come across, like you have to upload like a video. Like I did one and I showed it to my wife. I'm like, look, it's AI Frank. And she looked at it and she's like, that's absolutely insane. Now she could tell it was AI because like I uploaded my hand gestures while I was talking. And then when it generated what I was saying, the hand gestures really were a little bit weird with the words. So you could tell, okay, that's AI because it didn't jive.
Yeah.
But the fact that the video looked pretty good, it was like, wow, like the way he turns, it was like, so she was like, that's scary. The fact that they did this off an image of someone that's deceased, I'm like, that's like a whole nother level. At least it seems like that to me. I was like, that's wow.
Yeah. They're getting so good at it so fast. And then I've heard there's like some kind of a fact checker type software where kind of the only way it could tell if it was fake was something having to do with the eye movements, but very finite stuff we might miss, but they've got AI checking AI now. So kind of crazy.
If you're just glancing at it, it's that good now. If you're just glancing, you're like, especially when you see these online marketing clips that are real short.
Yeah.
So there's not like, it's not like a 20-minute thing. It's like 30 seconds. You think about it with the technology, it's really not that hard at this point to create a 30-second video of yourself that could pass as that was really you versus an avatar.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable.
Well, hey, let's jump into our final news item, our fun news item from Benzinga. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk says anyone can go to Mars with SpaceX, but the journey would be like a long sea voyage in centuries past, it says. And it's talking about doing unmanned missions in 2026. That's coming up quick. And then if they work that out, they could have crewed flights by 2028. So, and then of course talking about building cities there, and he's actually named it Terminus would be the name of the city on Mars within like 20 years. Who's
Terminus.
in? You guys want to go?
All Elon. That's totally Elon out there. Terminus.
We could do the show from Mars, right?
Yeah, let's do it. Might be a little lag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That'd be fun.
Somebody like Elon Musk, whether you like the guy, don't like the guy, you got to respect the big thinking and the way it's like, at the end of the day, he's a human being just like all of us. And it's almost like this challenge of, are we stretching ourselves?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's easy to think of him as larger than life because he's, recently we had the Cybertruck come on, which I got to get in one, and I was like, that's a cool vehicle. It's not pretty, but it is cool. And so I think about someone like him. I really like Mars. I'm surprised it doesn't say Jupiter, but I guess one planet at a time, right? So
gotta get a connecting flight.
Yeah. So I see articles like this and I say to myself, all right, Frank, am I thinking big enough? Am I pushing am I really doing my best. Because clearly he doesn't have any problem trying to do his. So, it's pretty amazing, regardless of if it's a long sea voyage or not.
Yeah, and so true, and Elon's a double-edged sword like we all are, but man, talk about a guy that just gives you permission to dream big. Wow, there's stuff that I could do that I can do that. If he can go to Mars, why can't I do this type of thing? So I like that. I have that somebody's out there and one guy is making a push two guys making a push to go to Mars. Like, that's crazy. Why is financial freedom so difficult for me? It's really not, in perspective, that sort of, but I love that comment you made about him though.
I have an idea. I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can list any of the properties that he builds.
Yeah.
There's got to be real estate transactions going on.
Mars Realty time.
Terminus Grove.
Yeah, I'm going online. I'm getting that URL right now.
I want to talk about himself, like Elon Musk itself, right, as well, because he's like incredible example of person who moved from South Africa, right?
Yep.
South Africa. Yeah.
Yep.
I have to remember where it's from. So South Africa, and then he's an immigrant, and then he established one company, another company, and that's one thing. The second thing, how can you do 2-3 things at the same time? That's another example. I can't do that. My brain is not capable of doing that, right? He's got, and I'm going to talk about successes, right? Tesla company, and the valuation of SpaceX more than Tesla right now, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe it changes and fluctuates. But again, so he built one thing, pushing through it's hundreds and hundreds of, probably a couple hundred years of the history of consumption, like regular engine, right, and oil consumption. And he just broke that wall of people saying, I'm not going to let you in because you're going to take a share of our market, right? So he broke that thing once. And then second time was the rocket landing on a ship in the ocean. I don't know if you guys remember that. One time failed, 2 times failed, 3 times, and he almost lost all the money and stuff like that. That's just an incredible example of an immigrant, right? Who just completely changed the world. And now everybody believes we can be on Mars because of him. Yeah. If somebody on the street stops you and say, you know what, we're going to be on Mars in a couple decades from now, and they're like, what are you talking about? What Mars? What are you talking about? Stop. And now everybody, that's his burning desire and intention and the idea, and that's it. And he got connected through the capital and people, and it's all realized in the United States of America. All right. And that's probably the only place in the world where he can realize that idea.
One other thing I love, Igor, about his story too is, he's putting it all online, and he's nearly ruined himself a number of times. I think they said had he failed another space shuttle, that whole thing probably would have ruined him. He didn't think Tesla was going to work. He just thought he needed to do it. And he is such a visionary. It is cool to be inspired by him. I agree for sure.
Yeah, somebody like him he has incredible focus. It's such a message to us about, hey, self, do I have the clarity of an Elon Musk on what I want to do? Because what he's showing us is when he's clear, look at what comes out. And let's say he had failed. Would that have stopped him? Probably not. He would have just done something else. And so it really made me, I see that and I'm like, okay, first, self, do I have that level of focus? Let's fix that. And to Igor's point, the fact that he can do it on 2 or 3 things, truly amazing. But then also just, who does he surround himself with? Right? Because it's not like most people around him, to your point, are going, hey, we're with you. Let's go to Mars, right? Like he had to figure out some people that were going to be on board with that idea. I would imagine. I seriously doubt everyone that worked for his company was like, you know what? Let's do it. Of course. Why wouldn't we go to Mars in 2 years?
I think he still goes to the office every day too.
Insane.
Yeah.
Helps be on the spectrum. I mean, he's got a superpower. Most people don't, right?
Yeah. Surrounding yourself with people that will support that vision, like, wow, that's critical.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, this is awesome. We got through the news portion. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Flipbid. Again, go to unitedstatesrealestateinvestor.com/flipbid. Go check out that TKO series and ask your questions about, their platform and how it compares to the other ones. And to get to the series specifically, go to unitedstatesrealestateinvestor.com/FBTKO. But if you want a discount on it, go to unitedstatesrealestateinvestor.com/flipbid. 2 P's and 2 D's. Also, thanks to United States Real Estate Investor Advertising, Universe Media Publish, and thanks to you guys as guests, Igor Shaltanov, Frank Iglesias, Eric Burns. In that order, go ahead and let people know how they can connect with you if you want to do that, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for the show. It's a pleasure, James, and everybody. There's a couple things you can do. You can go to avistafund.com, which is the website, and then you just fill out the form there so you can reach out to me directly, Igor@avistafund.com, Igor@avistafund.com, or you can download the ebook going to, because I play professional sports, I still love it every single day. So it's a winrealestategame.com. That's going to be ebook if you want to start the syndication journey. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, Frank Iglesias here. You can find me on my website, frankiglesias.com, or you can just type me in social media and message me. Pretty easy to find, or you can call our office, 678-408-2228. Love to chat with you, any and all things real estate. And, we just never know where a conversation and relationship can go.
Heck yeah.
Hey, great to sit with you guys. Eric Burns. You can find me on LinkedIn. Coincidentally, I'm updating some of my free content on my website, www.flowerscapital.com. And there should be a link for a free ebook, and tap into the info that way.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys. Again, I'm your host, James Brown. I show people how to make safe, secure returns through our investments. If you want to jump on our private investor list, again, go to legacywealthcollective.com. And also thanks to our founder and producer behind the scenes, Antonio Holman with United States Real Estate Investor. You can follow and subscribe to This Month in Real Estate Investing on YouTube at youtube.com/@UnitedStatesREI, or your favorite podcast app. We're on all the podcasts. And if you run across any interesting news, events, or have suggestions for other killer guests like these guys, just send an email to Antonio@UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com. And remember, when one door closes, another door opens to financial freedom. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.